Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, Magic Foundation's spoiler season is wrapping up in the next day or so, and yeah, they've been saving some amazing things for now. Let's jump into it. We kind of all called it essentially, but Blasphemous Edict. Okay, we were all slightly off, but this is basically what we all thought it was. Sorcery for 5 mana in black. You may play black rather than pay the spell's mana cost if there are 13 or more creatures on the battlefield. That was the teaser text, and my take on it, and maybe their take on it, was like, yeah, black wrath effect. Cool, there you go. Copying off of Blasphemous Act. And this is basically Blasphemous Act. Each player sacrifices 13 creatures of their choice. Now, I did think it was like a straight up wrath effect. This is obviously better than a wrath effect in many ways. I mean, if you're playing against that player over there that's got like 40 tokens in play, sure, this is nowhere near as good. That being said, the vast majority of the time, every player has less than 13 creatures, or I should say 13 or less creatures, meaning that, yeah, sacrifice is incredibly powerful. Yeah, because, yeah, it gets around a lot of things. Like, you know, well, hexproof, which, you know, all wraths do anyways. Not all of it, you know, some target or whatever, but you know what I mean. Okay, it gets around indestructible, you know, protection from colors. It gets around a lot of things, okay? So, yeah, having just a giant edict effect for everyone is huge. Again, 5 mana for everyone sacrificing 13 creatures is not, I mean, not that expensive as it is. What, like Barter in Blood? Is that the one that's 4 mana? That's like everyone sacrifices 2. And this is like, turn it up to 11. Yeah, I mean, turn up to 13, but, you know, Spinal Tap reference. Anyways, just having to pay a single black mana, this is basically Blasphemous Act in, you know, black. That's exactly what we thought it was going to be. I don't know how many, you know, board wipes at 1 mana we need in Commander, but, yeah, it's not difficult for the board to get to a spot where there are 13 creatures on the board. That is averaging, what, like a little over 3 creatures per player, essentially. So that's going to happen in almost every Commander game, basically. So, yeah, this is huge. This is definitely going to see a ton of play. I don't know if it's going to see Blasphemous Act levels of play because red doesn't have as efficient board wipes as black does, typically, you know. But, yeah, I think this is going to see a lot of play. So, look out for this one. Once you, like, see a player, like, being like, okay, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, just counting creatures on the board, and you're like, why are you counting creatures? Don't worry about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're at 12. And then they play a creature, and then they destroy the board. Next up, Bolt Wave. Okay, sorcery for a single red mana, 3 damage to each opponent. This seems very targeted. This seems very intentional with Niv Mizzet being a, you know, new commander. The new Niv Mizzet, I should say. There's so many Niv Mizzets these days. Is there like 6 now? 6 or 7. Anyways, is it Visionary? I think. Regardless, hey, whenever you deal non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw a card. This deals 9 in Commander. Again, for 1 mana. This is 1 mana, draw 9 cards. Sure, it's sorcery speed, but for any of those types of strategies out there that are like really good with burn, and we've gotten a couple of commanders recently that are really good with burn, this is really good for that kind of a deck because, again, for that Niv Mizzet, yeah, it's sorcery speed, which is a downside, but still, if you had a sorcery that was 1 mana, draw 9 cards, you would throw it into every deck you could. So, yeah, this is the type of lightning bolt effect that is not flexible at all. It's only hitting opponents' faces. But for certain burn-innate strategies out there, yeah, this is a ton of damage for low amounts, essentially, when it comes to taking advantage of that damage, I should say. Again, it's very efficient with that. Is it going to see, like, widespread commander play? No, not at all. But for specific commanders like the new Niv, it's huge. Next up, Abyssal Harvester, a 3/2 Demon Warlock for 3 mana in black. Tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn. Create a token that's copied, except it's a nightmare to other types. Then exile all their nightmare tokens you control. Oop, this is really interesting. So, I believe we got the text from Morrow, the teasers on this one as well. Like, exile and nightmare is the create a token part. I don't think we got the first part of it, but it's an interesting card for sure. It does have one relevant creature type. Sorry, all you Warlock tribal fans out there. But yeah, Demon is definitely a relevant creature type. Being a 3/2 for 3, that's not too bad, obviously. But being able to just say, okay, any creature that hits a graveyard, I can just make a token copy of it, essentially. Sure, I lose all my other token copies that I've made. But yeah, I can just really use and abuse not just mine, but opponents' creatures. Like, there may be creatures that have great ETBs, creatures that have great LTBs. I mean, as long as the LTB is like leaving the battlefield versus exiling if you're doing that. Regardless, populate effects can work really well with it too. It's a very cool card. Also, on top of that, of course, it is basically graveyard hate too. Like, if an opponent has like, oh yeah, like a reanimation style strategy, like, no, you don't get that creature back. I'm getting it, and you're never getting it again because it's gone. So it's a really cool card. Obviously, if this is some kind of a, I mean, untapped strategy, sure, could utilize something like this, but again, like, you're losing out on the other nightmares unless you already populate. There's a lot to it. It's a pretty cool card, though. Overall, very cool. Next up, Raise the Past. A sorcerer for 4 mana and white. Return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your grave to the battlefield. If you have got a really low to the ground creature strategy, cool. If you've got a self-mill deck that also has a bunch of low to the ground creatures in it, awesome, even better. For most decks out there, you're not going to be like, yeah, small creatures back into play. But for the right decks out there that really care about this, you're going to be like, yeah, slam this in the deck. It's a great reanimation spell. It gets everything back out of my graveyard. Next up, Sylvan Scavenging, an enchantment for 3 mana in green. At the beginning of your end step, choose one. Put a +1 counter on target creature you control, or create a 3/3 green raccoon creature token if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. Okay, so here's just my quick weird thing in Magic where it's like, all right, and I saw this like, why is a raccoon a 3/3? Just someone explain that to me. I understand this is a raccoon like has a sword, but like a bear in Magic is a 2/2, and then this raccoon's like, yeah, I can take that bear. Yeah, any day of the week. Anyways, yeah, I mean, if you have a counter strategy, sure. I mean, getting 1 free counter on your end step's not that big of a deal, but some actually just care about just getting 1 counter on. I guess more like proliferate type strategies. You could utilize that. That being said, yeah, a 3/3 on every single end step of yours can be quite great. And obviously, it's a pretty low bar to actually, have a creature power 4 or greater. So an enchantment that makes you a 3/3 every single one of your turns and only costs 3, to actually get out into play, that's pretty great. If you've got a commander especially that meets that power requirement, so you can like guarantee you're going to have that for the most part, great. Or again, one that works with counters or one that does both. It's a really interesting card. Again, it's just interesting to me that raccoons are somehow bigger than bears. Moving on. Zamone Paradox Sculptor. That's right, Zamone is back yet again. A 1/4 human wizard for 4 mana in Simic. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. And then, why is it you control wizards? Like, what? Did that matter all that much? Again, it's up to, so you don't have to put them on opponent's creatures if you don't want to anyways. But, like, couldn't you just make a deal and be like, sure, I'll give a counter on your creature if you just, like, swing it at someone else? Okay, that was a small nitpick. But anyways, pay Simic, tap, double the number of each kind of counter on each of up to 2 target creatures and or artifacts you control. This is a commander that is, and I just had to look it up just to make sure. I was like, this just isn't like almost exactly the same thing, but like doubled of Varel the Hulklade. It's basically Varel the Hulklade, but doubled. Now, Varel doesn't have anything to do with like getting counters on your creatures. So like, cool, like at the beginning of combat thing. But Varel is basically that exact same part at the bottom, except it's just 1 target, and also you could include a land instead. So this is just like, hey, if you have a Varel deck, and you've like maybe haven't played in a while, and you're like, what could spice it up? Zamone. Maybe. Cool. Or, if you need inspiration for a Zamone deck, look at a Varel deck and basically say like all the things that work really well with it, except for maybe like land synergies with counters. Outside of that, yeah, this is a commander that you can really go crazy with. Obviously, in green and blue, you've got a good amount of untap effects, so you could double, then double, then double, then double, then double, and go absolutely crazy. This one also is one of those kinds of cards where I expected Wizards to put on it like activate only at sorcery speed. They did not, thank goodness. So yeah, combat tricks can definitely be had with this one, where it's like, yeah, your opponent's like, I don't know what to block because I'm going to get smacked in the face by something that has counters on it, and it's going to get doubled, and it's going to be a lot. So, and keep in mind, it's not just +1 counters. You can, double up other types of counters as well. Again, it is you control, so like -1/-1 counter synergies won't work all that well, obviously, because you can't be like, oh, opponent's creatures, double those. Yeah, but like charge counters on artifacts, etc., other kinds of counters too. Yeah, you got level up counters. Lots of cool things you can do with this one. That being said, yeah, just go look up Brawl the Whole Clade and be like, yeah, okay, what works well with that one? Probably works well with this one as well. Next up. Okay, we actually did get some leaks somehow, like on the last day or one of the last days of spoiler season. So keep in mind, I will always say this. All right. Even though they look incredibly legitimate, and in the past, like 99% of the time, leaks are legitimate for the most part, the ones that actually look reasonable, you know, not like that Colossal Dreadmaw, whatever one that we saw a little while back, which is just funny. But yeah, these are not confirmed yet. They will be confirmed or not confirmed the next day or so, so look out for that. That being said, yeah, I think 99.9% of the time this is probably real. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. Right of the Dragon Caller, an enchantment for 6 mana in red, a mythic. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. That's pretty crazy. I mean, okay, again, whenever you have like an enchantment that hits like 6 mana, you're like, okay, they kind of can do almost anything at that point, and Wizards is like, yeah. All right, powerful, but it costs a lot to get out. Sure. This is quite good. Again, like, my kind of immediate thought was, like, Sharknado, like, in a comparable card. There are other ones, right? Like, Talrand, gosh, what's the one that costs 5 and makes you 1/1s? That one as well. Like, there's a good amount of, like, hey, you do this, you make a token, all right? But this one's like, okay, you cast an instant or sorcery. It can be any. It does not have a requirement on how big that spell is. You're making a 5/5 flyer with a relevant creature type. That's pretty spicy, really, really good. And again, because you can do it at instant speed, if you have just like an instant, opponents are going to have a hard time attacking you when they know like you've got mana up. Potentially you've got instant, especially if you've got like a spell slinger strategy, which obviously is very good in a very good finisher for those strategies. Like your opponents won't know how to stop you at that if they're going to swing out at you. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, by the way, I cast cantrip. I just made 3 5/5 flyers. I block your creatures, wipe you out, and then next turn I swing back at you. Yeah. This is one where it's going to be a huge finisher for those kinds of strategies out there. I mean, yeah, if you just have a good amount of instant sorceries in your deck, or if you've got like a lot of maybe... this is the thing about like... I'm not just going to say like just chuck this in Dragon Tribal. Like, if you've got enough instant sorceries, sure, but if not, you're like, okay, I play this. All right, I've got 1 instant in my hand. I play it. Okay, I got a 5/5. Yeah. And then, like, you don't have another instant or sorcery for, like, 3 or 4 more turns. And then you're like, okay, I just spent 7 mana. Let's just say 7. Okay, the instant was 1 mana, okay? I spent 7 mana for a 5/5 flyer. So, yes, Dragon Tribal could be a place for it, but more so, like, Spellslinger, yeah, definitely could consider a card like this. That is pretty crazy. That, again, it's making 5/5 flyers versus Sharknado is making, you know what, dependent upon mana value. It is non-creature, though, I guess, but still dependent upon mana value and flying sharks, which totally makes sense. Anyways, next up, Knight Squire, a 1/1 for 2 mana in white. Cat Scout. When another creature you control enters, put a counter on this creature. As long as this creature has 3 or more counters on it, it has flying, and is a 9 other types. Interesting card. Very interesting card. Definitely could see play in cat decks. I don't think scout decks or anything, but maybe. If you have a scout deck, let me know in the comments below. Cool. But basically... if you have a go wide strategy, you're going to be able to get a ton of counters on this. And yeah, the fact that it's also just, I mean, none of it really matters that, you know, if you got a Knight Tribal deck, I guess that matters that it's a Knight. Typically don't care about that, but it having flying is a very big thing, obviously, because all of a sudden it turns from a ground creature that can just be chump blocked into something that is probably going to be able to get through on one of your opponents quite quickly, quite easily. This is the type of creature where it's like, I feel like these kind of like, you know, build up creatures like this used to be more so in green, now also spreading into white as well. But it's a pretty cool card for the right deck. Next up, all right, loot apparently is back. Yeah, already, which is kind of crazy. Loot Exuberant Explorer. A 1/4, I believe that's Beast Noble underneath this. And again, sorry for the blurriness of these cards. Again, they are leaks for 3 mana in green. And also, sorry for like the random text on them sometimes too. You may play an additional land on each of your turns by paying, it looks like 4 green, tap, look at the top 6 cards of your library, maybe a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them, put on the battlefield with the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Yeah, this is, hey, every green mage's dream, right? There you go. You get extra lands. Okay, check. You also get giant creatures off the top of your library. Now, I will say, you know, unlike that one Naya Commander that also gets giant things off the top of your library, this one is slightly more limited in that, like, all right, it's based on the amount of lands you have, but here's the thing. I mean, you're in green, number one. You got plenty of ways to get a ton of lands into play. Your commander helps you get extra lands into play, which is already a huge boon for you. You're going to be able to get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Whatever creature in my deck, I can just get off the top of my library. You also have ways to get creatures off the top of your library into your hand as well. Or not in your hand, on top of your You've got ways to get creatures out of your library on top of your deck is what I meant to say. So you can set yourself up with the right creature. You've got untap effects as well, which might be like, yeah, well, that costs 6. It's like, you're in green. This gives you extra lands. You're going to be able to get to like 12 mana and then just be able to do this twice in a turn if you want to. Keep in mind as well, this is and again, I feel like Wizard just keeps doing this, so I keep expecting it, and they didn't do it on this one either. Does not say activate only sorcery speed. So, like, yeah, if an opponent's going to swing at you, you're like, 1 second. Activate my commander. Top 6, giant creature to block you. Yay! Everyone win. I mean, I win. Yay. So, yeah, definitely a really cool commander. You can use and abuse ETBs as well. And this is one where, again, a little bit of a risk on my part, I guess. A 0.00001% chance risk that this will just be not a real commander, and I will have wasted my time to go through cards that work really well with it. But again, I believe these to be real. So yeah, I do think that it's worth doing a quick take on this one. And also, there's another commander I'm going to be highlighting after this quick take, so stay tuned for that one. Another leaked commander. That being said, if you're interested in any of these cards, maybe wait until these are confirmed to pick any of them up. But in the description below, there is the card list link. Regardless, let's jump into them. Okay, so when you are working with a commander that gives you lands, or not gives you lands, but lets you play extra lands, hey, yeah, landfall. Pretty good with that. Lotus Cobra, 2/1 snake for 2 mana and green landfall. Land enters battlefield to control at 1 mana of any color. Very simple, very effective. Literally just you play 2 lands in your turn. Congratulations, you get 2 mana for free, which can be great at activating your commander's ability. You see the synergy there. Or casting other spells, or of course, like if you crack lands like Evolving Wilds, cool, you get 2 mana from that. Or if you play a Cultivate or a Ramp Growth or whatever, you're basically getting extra just for ramping too, which is huge. Next up, Scri Ranger, obviously untapping our commander again, like I mentioned. You might think like, oh, okay, well, it's 6 mana. Again, you're in green, your commander helps you ramp, you've got plenty of other ways to ramp, you're gonna get to 12 mana at some point too. I mean, and also we talked about like Lotus Cobra kind of like reducing that cost in a way a little bit. So yeah, being able to activate your commander twice can be massive. 1/1 flash flying protection from blue, fairy for 2 mana and green. Turn a force you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, activate only once each turn. I mean, with this again, this also plays into landfall quite a bit because let's say you only have 1 land in your hand, you play your land drop for the turn, your commander lets you play an extra land, you don't have one, you return a forest after you tap it to your hand, you play that again, congratulations, you got another landfall trigger, you also got extra mana from that forest. Yeah, it's a great way to utilize that while also untapping your commander to utilize that ability again, or untapping any other creature that maybe has an activated ability, and maybe that's Seeker of Skybreak, which would be kind of redundant to do, but that's still fine. 2/1 elf for 2 mana in green, tap, untap target creature. Yeah, again, untapping our commander can be very, very potent for all the reasons I've already mentioned. Next up, Augur of Autumn. And also, I'm going to mention, this is the type of commander where it's not, you don't have to go like all in all creatures and lands and that's it, but it could be a commander that could be very effective for doing so to ensure that you are hitting things off the top of your library that you want or have, you know, the options to put into play. A 2/3 Human Druid for 3 mana and green. Didn't realize this one's less than $1 right now. Awesome. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands to the top of your library. As long as you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may cast creature spells to the top of your library. All great things for you. Being able to have access to the top of your library and knowing what it is gigantic with this commander because you might just see that that's just like a huge creature off the top of your library that, you know, meets up with the number of lands that you have, matches up, I should say. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, cool. I know what I'm going to be getting potentially. I might get something better out of the next 5 cards, but at the very least, I know that's on top. If I want to cheat that into play, I activate it now, or I wait until the opponent's attacking me or whatnot. So there you go. And also, yeah, being able to play lands at the top of your library is huge with the additional lands from your commander. So you can actually get the extra lands off the top of your library. Helps also get rid of, like, you know, dead draws for you too. It's a huge card for you. And on top of that, you can cast creatures off the top. It does so many things for 68 cents. Next up, slightly more than 68 cents, a lot more. Isua Lost but Seeking. 1/2 Human Monk for 3 mana and green. You may play 2 additional lands on each of your turns. What's better than playing 1 extra land each turn? 2. Now you get to play 3. So being able to get this in play with your commander again just means you just dump every land you have into play. Obviously, helps you with ramp, helps you with utilizing your commander ability. Again, if you have any untap effects, helps you with casting things if you need to actually do that, which you might need to do, might not need to do really when you just keep using that ability, but also helps you get to, again, those higher end land numbers in case you've got like some giant Eldrazi or whatever you want to get off the top of your library into play. Next up, Tireless Provisioner, somewhat like a Lotus Cobra-ish, 3/2 Elf Scout for 3 mana in green. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token. You're never going to do that. Or a treasure token. You're definitely going to do that. Being able to, I'm not going to say never, I guess if it's like late game, you're like, I'm at 1 life. Maybe I'll gain some life. Being able to get lands into play and just getting treasures means that you basically have mana whenever you want from those treasures again, versus Lotus Cobra's like mana right away. So to store up those treasures, utilize them again for either casting giant creatures or activating your commander multiple times in a turn, etc., etc. Oracle of Meldiah. Yeah, again, if you've got more and more and more of these, like, hey, play extra lands type of effects, you can do some pretty crazy things with it. A 2/2 Elf Shaman for 4 mana in green. You may play an initial land on each of your turns. Play the top card library revealed. You may play lands to the top of your library. This does a lot for you again. Hey, okay, you get an extra land. Great, we already talked about why that's really good with the commander and Azusa. Also, get on top of the library. I mean, this is play with the top of the library, so your opponents do get to see that. But them seeing that you have a giant creature on top and you just being like, putting into play, yeah, it impacts a little bit compared to like just being able to see the top, but still, you knowing is probably better than, you not knowing. And also on top of that, again, playing lands off the top, already talked about why that's a great thing. Seraph Viper's Fang. Another kind of creature to consider when it comes to untap. 3/4 Heathen Warlock for 4 mana in green. Other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. Pay 1 tap, untap, and a target creature or land you control. Here's the thing. Unless one of your creatures has Vigilance, which typically you don't in green, yeah, you're going to be like, all right, cool. I swing. My creatures have Death Touch. Yay! Which means they're a lot harder for your opponents to block. On top of that, other untapped creature control of Hexproof. That is a huge way to protect any of your creatures you want to be protected, like your commander when it's untapped. Also, on top of that, again, you can instant speed whenever you want to, pay 1 tap, untap a creature or land you control, untap your commander when it's targeted. Very simple, very effective. Effective, but also just be able to untap your commander or other type effects you have to be able to utilize them again. Next up, Green Sleeves Moral Sorcerer helps out in a lot of different ways. Protection from Planeswalkers and from Wizards. Forgot about that, but that's nice, I guess. Power and Toughness equal the number of lands you control. So this can be a huge threat for you, again, for just 5 mana, or again, free off the top of your library. Whenever a land enters battlefield you control, make a 3/3 Badger. A Badger, 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 Badger. Yeah, that's basically what you're going to be saying, I'm assuming, when you're getting all those Badgers into play. Snake! It's a snake! Anyone who doesn't know that video, go look it up. Anyways, Brutalizer, Exarch. 3/3 Cleric for 6 mana. This is one of those where it's like, if you want to go not like full creature route, but or full creature route, you're like, okay, yeah, I need like creatures that can get rid of certain things, and also ones that can have some flexibility. Enters the battlefield, choose one, search life for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle your library, put that card on top of it, or put target non-creature permanent on the bottom of its owner's library. Basically get rid of it forever for the most part. So a good removal, when it comes to hitting the battlefield and doing that. Or again, a way to tutor out on top of your library a gigantic creature that you then activate your commander to get out. So yeah, a great tutor for you. Rampaging Balos, very simple, very effective. 6/6 Trampling Beast, and landfall, make 4/4. So yeah, literally with each tripper on the table, if you just have 2 lands, and you play them both thanks to your commander, congratulations, you get an extra 8 power across 2 bodies. What's not to love about that? Avenger Zenar, of course, can take advantage of lands as well. 5/5 Elemental for 7 mana. Enters the battlefield. You make a 0/1 plant for each land you have. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, 2 counters. Sorry, 1 counter on each planet control. I got ahead of myself. Basically, again, you're going to make a ton of plants when this comes into play, and then every single turn, if you're playing 2 lands, you get 2 counters on them. Lovely. They become absolutely massive. Speaking of massive, Cultivator Colossus, a disgustingly gross, powerful card. Star Plant Beast with Trample for 7 mana in green. Power Touch equal to the number of lands you control, so again, become absolutely massive with that. On top of that, when it enters the battlefield, you put a land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped. If you do draw a card, repeat the process. You can get a ton of lands into play with this. Nyx Bloom Ancient, yeah, it's an expensive card for a reason. 5/5 Trampling Elemental, who cares about that? This could be a 1/1 and it wouldn't matter. For 7 mana in green, if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. Your mana just explodes. Speaking of exploding, Galta Stampede Tyrant, yeah, explode your hand with this one. A 12/12 Elder Dinosaur Trample for 8 mana. Again, like, you might be like, well, what if I don't have 8 lands? Most of the time you will. You're in green. You're going to be able to cheat things off the top of your deck a lot very quickly with your green deck, with your commander that helps you ramp. I mean, literally on the turn that you get your commander down, you could be at 4 lands, next turn 6, then next turn 8. It just depends on, obviously how many lands you have, how many ramp, and you're going to get there, okay? Regardless, even if you do hit this off the top of your library, this can help you out a lot because it says, enters the battlefield again, put any number of creature cards from your hand on the battlefield. Just cheat out your entire hand of creatures. Again, if your deck is literally just creatures and lands, which it definitely can be if you want to go in that direction, dump your entire hand on the board, essentially. So there you go. Next up, Frontier Siege. If you're not going full creature, this is a very good card for you to consider. Enters the battlefield, choose cons or dragons. Sure, you can choose dragons, but I'd be choosing cons. At the beginning of each of your main phases, add green to your mana pool. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under control, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. If you chose dragons, again, not a lot of flyers in green typically, so I wouldn't be choosing that. And also the reason this is in the deck is because, you know what? All of a sudden, on your first main phase, you get 2 mana. That pays for 1/3 of your commander's activation cost. Then on your second main phase, let's say you untapped your commander, again with an untap effect. Cool, you get another 2 mana. Again, 1/3 of your commander's activation cost. So if you're activating your commander twice in a turn, I mean, if you're activating once in a turn, it pays for a lot of that, right? But if you're activating your commander twice in a turn, it pays for 4 of the 12 mana. That is huge. I mean, or you can choose this mana to help you cast some big things as well, so do consider that. Next up, Worldly Tutor. Yeah, you've got a lot of great tutors in green as well when it comes to creatures specifically. This one is very simple, very effective, very expensive. Instant for a single green mana, not expensive mana value-wise, money-wise. Search life for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle your library, put that card on top. Being able to just 1 mana be like, yeah, okay, I set myself up for the perfect play. Great, all right. Cheat on the play loop. Thank you. So yeah, this is a commander that I think has a lot of potential if it's real. Again, check out that card listing in the description, but maybe wait until it's actually confirmed to be real before picking anything up. Next up, the final leak. I'm going to be talking about the final spoiler, not spoiler in this episode, but it is a leak. The final leak of the spoiler episode, there we go, we got there. Alena, Saint of Dusk, again, not confirmed to be real yet, so do wait on that. That being said, a 4/4 Vampire Knight for 4 mana and Orzhov, I believe this is real. Lifelink, Hexproof from instance, as long as your life total is greater than your starting life total. Alena gets ++1 and has Menace. Alena gets an additional +5/+5 as long as your life total is at least 10 greater than starting life total. This is, oh gosh, there was that Orzhov vampire dude back in the day, like on like a Brone of some sort. Someone let me know what the name of that one is in the comments below. It was like slightly different. It's like protection from 2 different colors. Was it white, black? I can't remember. Anyways, this is a very, very interesting commander. There's not too many commanders out there that like mention like your starting life total. This one's like, hey, you know what? What we're going to be doing is gaining some life. I've got lifelink. That's nice. I can help you out with that. But yeah, find some other ways as well. Gain some life. And if you get to 50 life, guess what? I'm a giant creature for just 4 mana, which is absurd. By the way, yeah, your opponents, most of the removal isn't going to touch me because the vast majority of removal out there, again, when it comes to commander, typically when it comes to taking care of creatures, if it's not a wraths are sorceries, but that wouldn't matter anyways. Hexproof from a sorcery would not save you, essentially, from just destroy all creatures. Hexproof from instance means that, you know what, you're not targeting me the vast majority of your removal. So I'm pretty safe from a lot of things. I think, what is it, I think one of the Emrakuls has protection from instance as well. But yeah, that usually can save you from a lot of things. And of course, there's plenty of other ways in these colors to protect this commander. But yeah, getting this commander out and then being like, you know what? I'm at 50. Cool. I just paid 4 mana for a 10/10 lifelink menace that also has Hexproof from instance. Eat your heart out, green commanders out there. Yeah, because the amount of power is just absurd for just 4 mana. So you're a 3-shot KO very easily into a 2-shot KO and very, very easily into a 1-shot KO. Like, you literally can get to a 1-shot KO with this commander in no time at all, which is something to be said for an Orzhov commander. It's quite spicy. There's plenty of powerful things that we can do with this one. Let's jump into it. And again, there is a card list link in the description below, but maybe again, wait until it's actually confirmed to be a real card before picking up any of those cards. Let's jump into them. Okay, first up, Prowers Helm. Now, unless you're playing in a playgroup that exclusively all plays Arcades the Strategist decks, this is unblockability. Equipped creature can't be blocked except by walls. The vast majority of the time, unless you're playing against Changelings, you are, just unblockable. Opponents typically don't have walls, unless, again, they are Katie's a Strategist fans. There you go. So unblockability can be great with this commander, obviously. Again, when your commander gets Menace, that's nice, but yeah, you're going to want to be incredibly aggressive with your commander. You're going to want to gain life with your commander, and you're going to want to be able to get through with your commander once your commander's at peak power, so you can take your opponents out with commander damage. Next up, Verac Battle Horns. Yeah, this one I love this with any commander that has Menace, any creature that has Menace, because it's hilarious. Creature has Trample and can't be blocked by more than one creature. It's the exact opposite of Menace, which is you can't be blocked by 2 or more creatures. So essentially, this is like, you know what? Except by 2 or more creatures. So this is like, you know what? You just can't block. This is just my commander is unblockable because it has Menace, essentially. The Trample does not matter at all. So being able to get through on your opponents again is huge. Next up, Darksteel Plate. Again, something like this can make your commander not impossible to deal with, but incredibly difficult to deal with, because again, your commander will have indestructible, equipped creatures is indestructible. This is also indestructible, and on top of that, again, your commander is Hexer from Instance, which, as I discussed earlier, is typically what your removal is going to be in commander. So your commander can't be targeted, and also it can't be destroyed by most Wrath effects out there too. Next up, Fire Shrieker. Yeah, pretty obvious here, but Double Strike is your friend with this commander. Literally, Double Strike plus this commander equals 20 commander damage on a player once you have that 10-10 version of your commander. So you're 1 point off. I mean, obviously, if you have any other way to pump your commander just by 1 point, then you're at 22. Your commander is going to go through and take some out in one shot. And again, this can be done quite quickly because it's not hard at all to get, 10 extra life very quickly with your commander. And on top of this, helps you gain more life even too, which is nice, but still, being able to actually just hit for, 22 damage is very, very in the realm of possibility quite quickly. Mask of Grizzlebrand. Equipped creature has flying and lifelink. Whenever equipped creature dies, you may pay X life. Rex its power. If you do, draw X cards. This is nice. First of all, it's a nice way to get your commander through. Again, flying is nice to be able to just say, you know what, commander, you've got Menace. Now you've got flying. All of a sudden, you are able to get through on the vast majority of opponents because they don't either have flyers, or if they have flyers, they just have like 1 flyer. So you can get through on most all opponents. On top of that, the double lifelink doesn't do anything. That's okay, though. But it does say, again, if Alena happens to die, you get something out of it. Sure, you can pay X life, all right? You're going to have a lot of life with this commander, all right? You're going to get to a ton of life. And with that, sure, utilize 10 of it to actually just be like, you know what? I'll draw 10 cards, get some more great things. Why not? Next up, Aether, Flux, Reservoir, another way to utilize our life total. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. We are not going to be in a spell slinger type strategy. At least that's not the build I would do with this one. That being said, some nice extra life gain is good. And this is also just a I win the game card later in the game because you can hold players hostage with this. Pay 50 life, deals 50 damage to our creature or player. If you're down to 1 opponent and your commander is active again at that 10-10 level and you're above 50 life, congratulations, you took an opponent out. They're typically not going to have 50 life themselves. That being said, you also can get to the point where you have like 100 or more life with this kind of a commander. You can very easily do that, especially with some of the other cards I'm going to be talking about. In that way, you can just hold players hostage. Like, you can just be like, yeah, okay, I've got plenty of life to give right now. Yeah, all 3 of my opponents are around. All of them are within range of me to take them out with this. If you attack me, you're gone. Like that, you can just do that. You just hold that over the table. Like, do not do anything I do not want you to do. Do not take away my things. I will take you out with this at any speed I want because this is instant speed. I mean, not instant speed, but you can do it whenever you want. Okay, so you can either just take all players out with this, or again, you can hold players hostage with this, or just nice little extra life gain throughout the game. Next up, Cosmos Elixir. Beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total, otherwise you gain 2 life. Again, your goal with this commander deck is to literally keep your life total above your starting life total. So if so, this is a good repeatable draw for you, or just a way to gain some life and get back up to where you need to be. Next up, Eternity Vessel. This one's actually really good with this commander. Artifact for 6, enters with X charge counters on it, or X is your life total. Landfall. Whenever a land is battlefield you control, you may have your life total become the number of charge counters on it. That's great because, again, like let's just say you're at, again, that 50 life. Cool, I get 50 charge counters on this, and let's say my opponents take me below that. On my turn, then I'm like, oh, okay, I play a land. I'm above 50 now, or 50 or above. Cool. All of a sudden, my commander, again, is active, is that 10-10 version that I want. So just being able to, again, it is a May. You do not have to go to that life total. You do not have to go. So if you're like at 100, you're like, no, I can't play any more lands. That's not how this works. You can just be like, yeah, I choose not to become the number of charge counters. It's nice, like, insurance to be able to get there at some point, though, if you need to. Next up, Cloudsteel Kieran. Again, we talked about how flying is great with this kind of a commander. Quick creature is flying. You can't lose the game. Opponents can't win the game. Yeah, that's also quite nice. Again, your commander can be very hard to deal with. Again, instant speed stuff will not be able to target it. That being said, sure. I mean, obviously, again, Wraths could take it out, but yeah, if you got indestructibility on it, it's going to keep it around. But being able to just have it there and be like, you know what, for right now, I just can't lose the game. And also, I've got a way to give my commander a way to get through on my opponents. Again, with flying and menace, usually good enough to get through on anyone. That's going to be quite great. Next up, Spirit Loop. This is pretty funny and just hilarious because lifelink wasn't a thing at one point, and now it is. So this is like doubling up on that. Enchantment Aura for 2 mana and white. Enchant creature you control. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. Whenever Spirit Loop is put in a graveyard from play, return it to its owner's hand. Auras typically are, I'm not going to say bad, but they're worse than equipment because auras are like a 2-for-1. If your commander or whatever equipped creature is equipped with something and that commander dies, like you're like, oh, okay, well, I can just re-equip one later when I need to. If the commander has an aura on it and it dies, it's like, oh, that's gone. Darn, I just 2-for-1 myself. That being said, this comes back to your hand, essentially, so there you go. That's great. On top of that, though, like I said earlier, lifelink was not a thing at one point. This is basically an extra version of lifelink that isn't lifelink. So again, give your commander double lifelink like I talked about earlier does nothing. Like Master Grizzlebrand, this does. So now all of a sudden, when your commander hits, again, let's say your commander's hitting for 10. You gain 10 thanks to lifelink. You also gain 10 thanks to this. So all of a sudden, you just gain 20 life, and yeah, you're padding your life total to oblivion, which is amazing. Or if you've got Duelist Heritage, you just gain 40. Enchantment for 3 mana and white. Whenever one of our creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of turn. This is just a really fun card in Commander when it comes to politicking, because you're like, hey, over there, yeah, you. Yeah, okay, what? I'm about to go to combat. You're like, yeah, okay, cool. You're going to swing into those creatures at me? I was thinking about it. Well, if you choose to swing them at someone else, I will actually make that one creature hit twice as hard. Oh, that sounds like a good deal. Yeah, or just basically saying, like, even if you're not making deals with it, just being like, you know what? That creature gets bigger because it's not swinging at me. Awesome. Or not gets bigger, hits twice as hard. But yeah, being able to give your commander double strike on an enchantment, that is huge. Again, enchantment that's not an aura. Boon Reflection. Again, we talked about life. Gaining a bunch of life. This is nice. Enchantment for 5 mana. If you would gain life, you double it. Gain twice as much life instead. There's Alhamrad's Archive does that too. Very expensive cards regardless. Sanguine Bond. Another card to consider. There's other cards that do this as well, like Veto. Enchantment for 5 mana and black. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Another way to take players out. Again, maybe you're swinging at one player and then you're directing the life loss at another player. Being able to, again, gain 10, maybe even 20 life with your commander, maybe even more than that, and then saying, yeah, you're gone. Or this is just a combo card kind of with another card we're going to talk about here in a bit. And it's not Exquisite Blood, okay? It's not. Celestial Mantle, I guess it's kind of like with this. Enchantment, Aura, Enchant Creature. I talked about why it's a bit risky, but this might be worth the risk for 6 mana and white, +3/+3. So again, just getting our commander to... Again, 11 or above is huge because then double strike equals one-shot KO. Whenever enchant creature deals common damage to a player, double its controller's life total. That's huge. Being able to just double your life total, put your life total to, again, if you weren't already at that 50 mark, you're gonna get there. And then also, if you were already there, now you're at like an untouchable level. So yeah, it's quite fun. Next up, Beacon of Immortality. Talked about, combo cards with that. Technically, not really like a full combo, but definitely can be. Instant for 6 mana, double target player's life total, yours. Shuffle Beacon of Immortality into its owner's library. Being able to just double your life total can be huge, again, getting you to that 50 mark or well above it, of course. But yeah, if you have the highest life total and you play this and you've got Sanguine Bond in play, you take any one player out. That's basically how this works. Again, let's say you're at 50, your opponent's at, even if your opponent's at 50, doesn't matter. Cool. You're both at 50, you cast this, you gain 50 life, you drain someone 50, they're gone. Speaking of which, Revival Revenge. Revival, you can bring back creature, it can regard, bring it cost 3 less. Don't worry about that. It's nice if you need it. Revenge, though, is what we want. 6 mana, sorcery, double your life total, target opponent loses half their life rounded up. Yeah, this is a really good card to be like, you're going down, I'm going up, and if you've got Sanguine Bond in play, they are gone. Lots of cool things that you can do with this commander. Again, if it's real, again, maybe wait to pick up some of those cards. There's a card listing in the description below, but wait to pick them up maybe if you're thinking that this one might not be real, or just to hedge your bets. Wait for it to actually be confirmed today. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Make sure you comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.